Hey everybody, as you may have seen already, Scott and I are doing a little special edition, limited edition bonus podcast. So it should not affect our weekly podcast that we do here, the Illustrious Gentleman, but it should be in addition to that. And what we're doing is we're recapping The Mandalorian every week with kind of our thoughts on mostly storytelling aspects to it, but also I guess just general pop culture fan stuff. So yeah, we're going to release those episodes every Monday, and it's called Mondays with Mando. The first two episodes are out now, so be sure to check that out. And if you like the bonus stuff, or if you disagree with us and you want to argue with us, you can always send us an email, tigshowpod@gmail.com, or hop over to our Patreon, become a $1 a month or a $5 a month Patreon subscriber, and yell at us all you want on there. We'll be glad to listen. So yeah, check out Mondays with Mando on this same exact station, same feed. You shouldn't have to do anything to get those episodes. They should just funnel right into your app there. So thanks a lot and enjoy this episode.
Welcome to another episode of the Illustrious Gentleman, the place where comic book artists and top blokes Scott Godlewski and Ryan Cody talk about life, work, comics, and booze.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 145 of the Illustrious Gentleman. If you want to follow the show on social media, and you should, because my personal Twitter account and Instagram account has way more followers than the show's account. So if you want to, check out what we're doing behind the scenes on the show and get updates on the episodes, you can follow the program on Instagram and Twitter at TIG_show. And Scott, please tell everyone how else they can listen to the show.
I suppose if you were feeling bad about yourself and wanted to feel a little worse, you could go to anchor.fm/Tig Show. And you do all the damage you want there.
You can also listen on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Podcasts, Apple Podcasts.
Oh, yeah. What are they called? It's Podcatcher, right? Isn't that the thing? That's the thing, right? Podcatcher?
Podcatcher, yeah. That's right. That's the correct term.
Right. I see like a microphone-shaped dream catcher in my head.
Yeah, like a butterfly net or some sort of like animal catcher.
Oh, yeah, just running around.
Yeah.
I got cereal.
And also, if you love the show, you can hop over to patreon.com/TigShow, and all the links are found at tigshow.com. At the Patreon, you can support the program for just $1 a month, up to $5 a month. We're not greedy.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
So please support the show if you like the show, even if you don't like the show.
I just threw my bottle lid at the microphone.
Drink it down in one breath.
Drink. Eins, zwei, drei, vier. Lift your stein and drink your beer. Eins, zwei, drei, vier. Lift your stein and drink your beer.
So I've made a huge mistake. I cracked a bottle of Schofferhofer. Hefeweizen grapefruit beer. B-I-E-R. You have to say it that way. It's beer. Yeah. It looks like Fanta. And I say I've made a huge mistake because this guy, where was it? I just saw it. Where'd it go? Oh, there we go. I don't know if you can see that. Is it 2.5%?
Oh, wow. Well, it's a good thing to get like your, it's a good thing to hydrate and get your fluids in, fight off any cold you have.
Sure.
It's whatever. It's water. But good for you.
It's the same ABV as Fanta.
Okay, my beer for the week I got at the grocery store, a little $4 bomber. It is Lead Dog Brewing's Raspberry Blonde. It's only 5%. It's from Reno, Nevada. It's another one of those dog-themed breweries that are so much the fancy these days, I guess would be the word. So much in vogue. So we're going to try it out. I like raspberry beers. There's one up here in Flagstaff. A local brewery makes one that I enjoy. There are not many reviews on this. I think Beer Advocate Theater had one. So I'm pulling a little ditty from Untapped, and this is from Roxanne F. And she said it was refreshing and just enough tart. Refreshing and just enough tart. So it's kind of like me when I'm feeling sassy. So because of technical issues and because this is we already released a couple podcasts this week, we're not going to do our normal TIG talk, but there was a story I wanted to share. I was listening to Whitney Cummings' new podcast, and has Dave Grohl on it, and they were talking about haunted houses, and like those kind of haunted houses you see around Halloween and all that, where you go in there and so. They had a story about that, but it reminded me of a story that I had of when I was a kid. So probably like 1987-ish, 86-ish, Oceanside, California. At that time I had a girlfriend. I don't want to, humble brag too much, but, I was like 12, 13, had a girl, kind of cool. And so we went to this haunted house, and, it's full of like, whatever, had your typical like chainsaw dudes and
a whorehouse, right?
Yeah, yes, not a haunted house, a whorehouse. Had like chainsaw dudes and masked dudes and shit like that, and basically like we go through the whole end of it. You go through the whole thing. Nothing's too scary, kind of scary. We get to the very end of it, and so at that time my girlfriend was a little bit taller than me. I mean, if she was 4'9", I was 4'8", 4'7", whatever. And the last sort of thing that happened is right before you exit, a dude jumped out with like a chainsaw and a mask, and I think he might add like some chains and maybe like a fucking hammer or something. And he like scared us, and so like I kind of was like, oh fuck. And my girlfriend at the time just turned and just like fucking kicked him in the nuts, like the hardest I've ever seen anyone be kicked in the nuts before. And we ran out of there, and it was like the funniest shit ever. Like I couldn't even imagine like what that looked like from the outside, but it was hilarious. And that story on the podcast reminded me of that. So, okay. So today's topic, if you want to call it a real topic, I guess it is. We have a couple questions from friend of the program, longtime friend of the program, longtime supporter of both you and I and our work, Mr. John Burgers. He sent in a couple questions on the Patreon, which you can do if you're a $5 or above Patreon backer. Don't tell anybody, but we'll probably take questions from those dollar backers too, because we're nice guys. But, John had a question, and it's really more for Scott, because he knows that I still read a fair amount of comics, probably 5-6 a month. But Scott, I don't think you read many comics at all. So two-part question here to start with. So this one's more for Scott. Because I know Ryan still reads some, but do you think your lack of reading comics contributes to the disillusionment of your career? So, I mean, you should be loving your career. I mean, one would assume you are. You're drawing Detective Comics, a couple issues of that, and, that's going to be fun no matter what, no matter who you are. But he's just curious, do you think that because you don't read comics, does it contribute to your lack of excitement about the industry or about maybe what you're working on? And then there's a second part here. It says, perhaps the reverse. Does your lack of excitement about your career make you disinterested in reading comics? Two really good questions. So what do you think, buddy?
All right. So I had a little bit of time this morning sitting at the bar at Oso, pre-gaming for the show, waiting for my old man to show up. And I sat down and I actually wrote out some thoughts on this. So Jonathan, can I call you John? John. Here is my answer to this. Okay, and I didn't write down the second question. Both the first two questions are kind of related, so I'm just gonna lump them into the same answer here. If you want to read the second question, you can go ahead, because I'm gonna address both of them here.
Right. It's right. It was. Does your lack of excitement about your career make you disinterested in reading comics? So it's kind of like you don't consume the product that you work. You don't consume product from the industry that you work in So do you think that contributes to your lack of excitement about the industry overall? Like, yeah, so you're not consuming any of it. So do you think that contributes to your lack, make you disinterested in working in it, I guess is the question. But that's kind of a summary of it, but you know what I mean.
Right. All right. So I am not okay, there's no lack of excitement or any disillusionment specifically with my career. I think what people need to understand is being dispassionate and disillusioned is just my baseline. So that's just me. That's just me as a person. It's not specific to comics. It's not specific to the podcast. I just don't like anything.
Well, let's go back in a time machine to little Scotty G when he was a little kid. Is this kind of always been like this? Is this something, is this kind of now that you're a grown up, or have you always kind of been just sort of like baseline, not giving a shit about anything?
No,
you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, just in everything.
But it's funny because this is stuff you should be interested in, isn't it? Like, shouldn't you be interested in what you work in?
Why?
When you're a big-time, top 10 ranked junior high basketball player, middle school basketball player here in the state of Arizona, weren't you like a fan of basketball? Like, you played basketball, and didn't you like watching basketball? And didn't you have favorite teams? Didn't you enjoy all that shit?
Is this hypothetical? Because that's not me. I was never on a basketball team.
All right. Well, when you're like a kid and you're playing with like toys and stuff, aren't you passionate about? Aren't you watching the cartoons?
Sure.
Okay.
Here. Okay. Is the person working in the billing department for the insurance company, are they passionate about paperwork? Are they passionate about approving or disapproving claims?
Well, that's a little kind of easy way to dodge the question. It's a cop-out because you're equating that kind of work to our work, and that's a non-creative job. It's we work in a creative field, so these questions apply to a creative job, right? So do you think like the character designer for the new X-Men cartoon that there's bound to be, do you think he didn't grow up watching cartoons and doesn't love cartoons and comics and ingest that media now?
Does he actively watch cartoons? I don't know. I have comics. I have read comics. I own comics. I don't actively read anything.
Yeah, we're kind of getting into a bigger kind of question. Like, if you're a surgeon, do you go home and just like stitch up people for free? Or if you're a plumber, do you like just like seek out neighbors' houses and ask them if you could fix, their pipes and shit like for free?
Right. Yeah, you got any pipes I can fix?
Okay, well, I guess the question is, do you think that your lack of passion about the medium or about comics, reading comics, contributes or flows over into your work, or do you think it'd be vice versa? Like, do you think if you consumed comics on a regular basis, if you were a avid reader of modern comics, do you think that would bleed over and affect your comics?
No, I don't. I have comics. I own comics that I like. I own comics that I love. I will pull them out occasionally, and give them another look through. I don't do it very often. And I'll get into that in answer to the next question. Also, though, why I don't read comics is honestly because I'm cheap as fuck, and comics have priced me out of reading. I am not willing to pay $5 for a serialized issue of whatever. I'm just not. I don't even expect people to do it for my books. I mean, if somebody's going to make this same argument to me, oh yeah, I really like your book, but I just can't justify plunking down $5 for 20 pages of content. I would totally understand. I agree. I think the price to value ratio is super out of whack in the current marketplace. So that's the main reason why I don't read books.
Okay, one thing I've been trying to work on is my my conversational skills. So let me challenge you on this. You have an Amazon Prime account, and with Amazon Prime comes Comixology Unlimited. So there's plenty of free comics you can read on Comixology Unlimited. We used it for a show not too long ago. We read Batman Year One. At least I used it for that. So how many comics are you reading on Comixology Unlimited? Because they're free, to that point.
Big fat goose egg, son. I'm reading none of that. I don't even think about it. Like outside of work, comics occupy 0% of my life.
All right, but when you were, working a day job, the norm job, before you worked in comics full time, or before you started working for Boom and all that stuff, were you reading more comics then? Were you consuming more comic books when you weren't working in the industry?
I'm sure, yeah.
Or have you always been you, and do you think you kind of grew out of it?
I don't want to say grow out. My attitude regarding the business model has certainly shifted. Also, well, grow out maybe. I mean, I got 3 kids now. I got a mortgage. I got bills. I need to be a little more judicial in what I throw my money at. So it's just not worth it to me. I have stuff that I like. It's going to continue to exist. I don't feel the need for new things, or taking the chance on new things. I don't know if I'm going to like it or not, and really, being a visual guy, any book that I'm going to read on the reg, I'm going to read for the art. And all I need is my eyeballs for that. So if I really want to see what Jorge Jimenez is laying down, I can go online and I can take a peek at what he's doing, and be satiated that way, Yeah,
I'm kind of in a weird spot where, like I mentioned earlier, I'm reading more comics now than I have in years, like a long time. I consume a fair amount of comics now. And so a lot of times I'm at my local LCS and I'm flipping through comics, picking up what I'm picking up. And then a lot of times, I think like, why? What's the point of this? Why
do you think that is?
I think it kind of goes to the topic of this question, is that I'm hoping that one of these comics I pick up is going to like blow my mind and inspire me, storytelling wise and art wise. I'm picking up, I'm trying a lot of issue 1s. I'm picking up stuff that looks cool, and I'm hoping that this will be the thing that sparks me to, because I'm a little bit of funk right now creatively, work wise, schedule wise, keeping on track. And so I'm thinking that, maybe one of these things will trigger something in me, and I'll just fucking go on like this crazy run of creativity. But that's not the case. That's often not the case. A lot of times, I'll pick up a comic, and then after a couple issues, I'll be like, why am I buying this comic? So then I got to text my LCS and be like, I'm not going to read this anymore. So don't don't order this comic because of me. If you're going to order 5, just maybe order 4, because I don't want to pick it up. And if you've already ordered them for me specifically, I'll buy them because I don't want to leave my LCS hanging. That's a shitty thing to do. But yeah, it's, I'm willing to give a title 3 issues, try to give me that. But I mean, now I'm down to only reading maybe 4 to 5 monthly comics, maybe 6.
That's a lot.
So yeah, that's like probably, I don't know, between like 20 and, $30 a month I spend on comics. And it's not like I can complain too much about the money, because, I'll go to the bar and I'll spend $30 at the bar, like on a Saturday, so it's not like it's, yeah, I'd be lying to myself if I was like, oh, I can't spend this money, or it'd be like a weird thing to do. Like, I can't spend $30 a month on comics when I spend $30 a day at beer at the brewery, because pipe prices are way too much money nowadays, and breweries are raking in the dough. But it's neither here nor there. But so I do kind of go to my comic shop, and I do flip through new issues, and I do try to find new things to be inspired by, and I do, try to pick up and try new things. It's I like that ritual. I like going there on Wednesdays now and doing that. And sometimes I buy one issue and sometimes I buy 3 issues. And, maybe even once a month I walk out of there and I don't buy anything. So I don't know. I like going to the shop every Wednesday now. So shout out to Cab Comics. Shout out to Corey. I enjoy my Wednesday ritual, even if it only lasts 10, 15 minutes, something like that.
I don't go to my local shop. When I do buy a book every 9 months, when I say to myself, oh, I haven't bought a comic in a while, what's so-and-so doing? And I open up my Comixology app and am really sort of taken aback by the price of a digital comic. That's when I get upset. When I'm like, why does a digital book cost the same as a print book? And then I begrudgingly go, fuck it, and I buy that one issue, and then I probably don't even read it. I just look over it, and then that's it. It's on my device, and it's not lying around, so I don't think about it again, and I never read it again. It's just nothing.
Yeah, the reason I believe the reason that digital comics on Comixology are the same price as print comics is to protect retailers. If every comic at your retail shop was $4, $3.99, and then every comic was available online for $1, I think that would severely hinder brick and mortar stores. So I think that's why retailers keep their digital comics the same price as their print comics. But I want to give a shout out to there's a website, Brian K. Vaughan and other creators called Panel Syndicate, and it's, I think they have dollar downloads and they have some great comics. David Lopez does a comic that I really like called Black Hand Ironhead. It's really great, and those are all you can get the whole 5 issues for like $5 digitally. It's great. Big fan of Black Hand Ironhead by David Lopez on Panel Syndicate. But yeah, I mean that brings up another thought that like a first issue of a comic should be cheaper than the rest of the issues of the comics. Should be like a gateway drug, like give the dime bag, get a little bit of weed free, and then come back and get some more, like meth or coke or heroin. New issues should be half price or something like that. Like give me the first taste for cheap, and then see if I come back for more.
Yeah, you want people to try your book. Invite people in. Number 1 sell better anyway. You're never going to have more readership than you have on number 1.
That's right. Give us the taste.
Yeah, I guess my position runs a little antithetical, or maybe that's not the right term. I don't even know what that means. I just hear people use it. It runs counter to my professional position. It's like, I'm not taking a pay cut. I'm not going to be paid less. So comics can't cost any less, because you still have to pay everybody what they're going to make. But as a reader, I think it's absurd, and I refuse to do it.
Well, speaking of things that we refuse to do, or I refuse to have this podcast not have its anchor ad in it. So let's take a break, run our anchor ad, and we'll be back in about 45 seconds. All right, Scott, so here's one for you. What if you went somewhere, or you were maybe you're on the comp list at your publisher and you just got a box of free comics, and, money wasn't the problem. And do you think if that was the case and you consumed more do you think if you read a comic first thing in the morning that you really loved, do you think it would, pump you up for that day's work, or it would make your work better, or?
All right. That's an interesting, fair question.
Like, for example, I mean, why don't I just keep interrupting you and keep talking? For example, I go to a con and it's a terrible con and I don't make any money and it's a bummer and there's nobody there I really know to hang out with and it's just like a lonely, miserable time. Then I come back and I'm not in the best, best mind space to work. But if I go to a show and it's a pretty good show and it's fun hang and everything's cool and I'm pumped, and I come back and I'm pumped to make comics. And so it's like, does anything do that for you, or what does that for you? So like if you're on a cool Instagram thread, or you're looking over like some cool Jorge Jimenez art or Francis Manapool art or something like that, does that get you, do you feel like that gets you more pumped up for work, or does it not really affect you that way? Does it not do that for you?
All right. No, And it's probably a different answer for most people. Most people will probably say, yeah, they have that sort of that little inspiration kick they have, right? They have muses, they have things that motivate them to get back at it. So me being who I am and my confidence being as absent as it is, both in myself as a human being and as a professional, when I come across a good book, when I come across art I really like, I end up comparing myself to the creator and being intimidated by it, and then it throws me off of my game. Whatever rhythm I had is kind of out the window because I've been influenced, and now I'm a lot of times, you know what? It's probably about 50-50 conscious and unconscious, but I'm trying to tweak my stuff and adjust and go in a way towards this thing that I have been most recently influenced by, and it really does a huge mind fuck on me, and it takes me a long time to throw that stuff out and just get back to instinctually just doing what I do. So no, I yes, the reason I don't read other books, it's because I'm cheap, it's because I don't have time, and it's because I don't want that distraction. I can't afford that distraction. It's super sad. I don't like it. I hope that's not the same for a lot of people, but I consciously avoid stuff from guys that I like because I know it's going to screw me up.
Yeah, I could see the point of that. That kind of makes sense. I mean, obviously, you read all my stuff, so, I'm not going to read too much into that. Right, so, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, taking cost out of the equation and taking time out of the equation. There's always, you can always make time somehow. Maybe, I don't know. Like, I know I personally waste plenty of time on social media that I could spend doing other stuff. But so, you let's say you had access to all the new issues again, and you might be able to. I mean, you might have, you probably do have the FTP info, so you might be able to read all the new issues and stuff like that from the publisher, from your current publisher. You're saying even with that, even if you had a day where you could just relax and do whatever you wanted without any repercussions, you still wouldn't sit down and try to absorb all these new issues and all this new artwork and stories and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I would not look at the new Justice League issue by Francis. I wouldn't do it because I know I'm gonna notice something. I'm gonna see, oh, look how he draws the thumb this way, or look how he uses this gradient and this texture over here, and then I'm gonna force it into what I do, and it's not gonna work. And I'm going to say, fuck, what is wrong with me? I can't do this. Why can't I make it look like that? And then everything falls apart. My I don't want to use the word again, but yeah, my professional confidence is a house of cards. It's constantly falling apart and needing to be rebuilt. Every day I go through the process of rebuilding that thing, and I just cannot afford that. Whatever it is as minuscule as it is, whatever little thing, I can't afford that sway because it's going to take everything apart.
Yeah, confidence is a big thing. Like I'm currently working up a pitch where I'm penciling, inking, and coloring, and it's been a while. Other than doing development stuff on my own self-published stuff for the Kickstarter backers out there, I'm still plugging away at it, but I am behind on it. But I hope that we're gonna hit our deadline. Don't worry yet. But yeah, so I'm doing these 5 pages as a pitch, and it's the first time I've really done full art in a while for somebody else, for a third party to look at, that kind of thing. and it's difficult. I used to be so fast, and I feel like I am still fast, but I'm second guessing every decision on this. It's really a crisis of confidence is a real thing, and so I guess I can see your point of not wanting to, if you have your baseline in that, if you have your process down and you know where you're at when you start every morning, I could see not wanting to rock that boat or whatever for a terrible euphemism.
Well, okay, I'm not saying that's a whole other thing. That doesn't have anything to do with me battling outside influences. But no, that's another thing. I mean, that's separate from all this stuff. But yeah, just second guessing yourself. It was something I find. I don't know if you're in the same boat, but generally, whatever you think is going to be the easiest part of whatever book or whatever page ends up being totally the opposite. So, you'll have the talking head shot. Panel 3 is just a single head. It's a reaction shot or something. You have to be fine. This is great. This is warm up. I'll just start with this panel, and then you draw it, and because you thought it was so easy, you race through it, and you get done. And you're like, this is garbage, and then you throw it out and you draw it again. But the idea. But it's already in your head now. I couldn't do this the first time. What's wrong? Am I overthinking it? Am I underthinking it? And then I draw it again, and it's wrong again. And then you throw it out, and then it's terrible. It's terrible. The whole thing about any creative thing is terrible. It's just terrible. Go to Universal Technical Institute, kids. Get your UTI and go fix fucking air conditioners. This is garbage.
Yeah, a degree from Universal Technical Institute is what you want, not a urinary tract infection. Young ladies, young men. So I think that, I don't know. I think that we're far enough. We've been doing this long enough that we're second guessing ourselves too much. Like maybe our first thought is, maybe the first idea we have is the right idea, and then we get in our own heads and we fuck ourselves up. I mean,
that latter point is correct. In any creative endeavor, your first choice is never the best choice. It might be a good enough choice on deadline thing. It might be the thing you have to go with, but it's never the best choice.
I think sometimes it can be. I mean, I don't think always, obviously, but I think sometimes your initial thought or your initial action is the correct one. I mean, comic book readers, I love them to death. They're basically the reason why we're employed is, but I don't know if they would know the difference between your first thought or your first try or your 15th try. If you erased a face 20 times, I don't know, and I don't know if they would be able to know the difference or care about the difference.
No, I disagree. I mean, if that were the case, then third and fourth drafts wouldn't be a thing.
I don't know.
No, it's the same. The first layout that you put down, is that the one you go with?
I don't really do layouts personally.
100% of the time?
Well, not all the time. I mean, sometimes I guess I do layouts, but I usually don't overthink it too much. I have an idea in my head, and then I just draw it, I suppose.
No, you're doing a layout of some sort. You're loose penciling. You're putting stuff down to see how it's going to play.
I suppose so, but it's not always conscious. Sometimes it's just in my head or it's subconscious. And it also depends on the project. Some project requires more and some requires less, and there's so many different thought and decision. There's so much different thought and decisions that go into every little thing.
Oh, sure. It is a totally different vibe. I feel completely different sitting down and starting a page of Copperhead than I do a page of Batman or Batgirl or whatever. It's a totally, and it's an expectation that I am feeling from. It's an expectation I'm feeling from editorial because editorial feels it from the audience. So when I sit down, just a flat shot of Batman sitting at the computer in the Batcave is not going to play. It's just it's not what people expect. It's not the most interesting way to tell this, but my initial thought and feeling sitting down is just going to be, okay, I'm going to put its eye level at the fucking desk so I don't have to draw the top or the bottom of the desk in perspective. I'm just going to put him in a chair, and I hate drawing chairs and people sitting, so I'm going to frame it to where maybe his waist is at the bottom of the panel. But none of that stuff is the best way to do it. It's not the best way. It might be acceptable. It might be good enough in certain situations, but it's never the best.
Yeah, I get that, but I also think that sometimes indecision is our own worst enemy, or like I said, crisis of confidence, or something like that. It's one of the harder parts of this job, I guess, and maybe no amount of inspiration or no amount of lack of inspiration is going to change that, you know?
Sure. Okay. I've got a splash page sitting on my screen that I turned in a couple of weeks ago for pencils. And I've been sitting here for the last 2 days in front of this screen trying to rework it because it was boring as fuck. I need to figure out a way to inject more life and more action, more urgency and more movement into this one image. And it's still there. It's going to be there all weekend. And this is another problem with the indecision stuff. It's going to sit there and I'm going to think about it and think about it and think about it. And it's going to get in my head and I'm going to get scared of this page and I'm going to skip it. And I'm going to save it until the end on deadline day. And I'm going to sit down and I'm going to wet my fucking pants because I can't tame this thing. This thing has so much power over me right now that it's frightening and I don't want to deal with it. And I just sit under my desk, just rocking back and forth, sucking my fucking thumb because I can't figure out how to do this one thing.
Yeah, go with your gut. If you don't love it, put it at like a Dutch angle, turn the page 45 degrees and just ink that bad boy up. I'm sure you're being way too hard on yourself.
That's art school bullshit.
Hey, don't talk shit about the Art Institute of Phoenix and their fine associate arts program. I guess this is something we'll never find the answer to.
No, well, we did. I'm right. You're wrong.
Okay, tough guy. Let's move on to John's third question. And I don't know how much thought you put into this, but with all the comic book movies / TV shows being made, which IP that hasn't been made into one is the most surprising, and which one would you most like to see? So yeah, I had some thoughts on this. What about you?
I wrote down a few things, yeah. All right, so the thing I'm most surprised by, which has not been adapted into whatever, I guess initially my mind went to Saga, like as being sort of the biggest non-Big Two, non-corporate sort of thing that hasn't been done. Walking Dead's got its own life and whatever. But yeah, that was my first thought.
Yeah, Saga makes sense. That's the obvious choice, and I think it's probably coming soon.
You?
Yeah. It's kind of hard because most stuff's been kind of developed, but my number one overall pick would probably be Southern Bastards. It's my favorite comic of the last decade or so, and I think it lends its well. It's kind of like Fargo meets Friday Night Lights. You know, it's crime, it's football, it's rural. I think it could be a smash hit.
Yeah, you think it'd be popular in the South? Something called Southern Bastards?
Yeah, I think you might get some Southern conservatives a little get their panties in a ruffle over the title, but the book itself doesn't really like denigrate Southern culture. It just sort of, I mean, the what's going on there could happen anywhere. It could happen in any rural area where crime and drugs and just small town drama and bullshit rules supreme. So yeah, I don't think that's a problem. I don't think the title's a problem. Excuse me. Okay, what IP would you most like to see? So if it's surprising these haven't been done yet, what's something that you think would be cool and something you would like to see?
Now this would take. Okay. Sort of in the same vein of The Boys, in a sense. It would take a commitment from one of the big two. It would take Warner Brothers saying, okay, do this. But with this recent success of Joker and them sort of not playing it completely safe, I think maybe this is a thing that could work, especially maybe with the success of the Suicide Squad. Even though it was a huge piece of garbage, it made $1 bazillion. I would like to see The Authority on a screen of some kind.
Oh, for sure. Like super violent, super gay, British, big action, big destruction. I like it.
Yes. Yeah, like I keep saying, I think the market is totally primed for subversive superhero content.
Yeah, it just had to be done the right way. It'd have to be, you'd have to prime the audience for it, and you'd have to like pull no punches, don't water it down, just make it a good show, not just a good comic book show.
Yeah, I feel like it would play on Hulu or Amazon. It's sort of a, it's not really high concept, but I think it's dependent upon a more advanced audience. It's not going to play to the same people that are going to see Captain Marvel and Ant-Man.
Right, it just has to be really well done. It can't lean on that it was a comic, or it can't lean on effects, or it can't lean on just the violence. It has to be well done. Everything does now. Yes. I think it. I think it could find that same sort of audience. It would need that same sort of viewer, the one that, I like Iron Man, and I like Captain America, but I don't like Captain America because he's got a cool shield, and I don't like Iron Man because he shoots lasers. I like them because they're interesting characters. Right. So the first up on my list, I have two things I wrote down. Both of them are also super violent, fun shows. The first one would be Body Bags. I always thought Body Bags would make a great movie.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, there's lots of like cartoonish violence, lots of sort of crime elements to it. You still got the colorful mask. You still got the colorful kind of characters, outlandish, style characters, over the top violence, kind of like Sucker Punch or, even The Boys that we keep referring to, stuff like that. You could even mix like something like The Tick, like the funny comedy aspects of The Tick with something a little more adult and a little more violent, if that makes sense.
Oh,
or maybe a better example would be something like The Tick mixed with like Kick-Ass. I think Body Bags done right could be like another kind of Kick-Ass. You got Panda, who's kind of like Hit Girl, and then you have Mac, who's kind of like Big Daddy. I think it'd be cool.
Kick-Ass, Hit Girl. Yeah, I thought you kept saying Kick Girl.
Nah. Okay. Anything else? What's next on your list of IPs that you are surprised they haven't been turned into some sort of media property? Comic book IPs have not been turned into a media property.
I wrote down another one that actually had a release that nobody saw, so I don't count it. I don't understand why Powers isn't a thing anywhere right now.
Oh, so you're saying you didn't see the Sony Crackle version of Powers?
No. I don't even know where you would find it.
Yeah, I remember I watched them on my phone, and the second season was so much better than the first season, but both were kind of like disappointing. They didn't have the budget. They didn't have, they didn't have the backing behind it that it needed.
There were 2 seasons?
Yeah, it just needed more. Like I said, the second season was better. It just needed more. It just needed someone to really champion it, I guess, and put money into it.
Yeah, I can see this as an FX show.
Yeah, it's got all the elements for a good like cop drama, for a good superhero show with the flashbacks. I've mentioned it before, but Powers was always one of my favorite comics that got me back into comics. And I really love that storyline. I think it was called Forever, where they followed them from like essentially like humanoid apes all the way through modern time, because the protagonist and antagonist are both like immortal. And so they just fought each other throughout time. Like, I thought that was great. Like, I don't know how that doesn't translate really well to like a solid 12 episode season on a prime cable network.
Wow. It sounds like they made that movie then. It was called Hancock. Ugh.
I never saw that movie. That Will Smith, Charlize Theron joint passed me by.
Yeah, spoiler. Will Smith and Charlize Theron are like ancient gods that keep getting reincarnated. So in the modern day, he's a superhero. And in the modern day, she's married to Jason Bateman. Because that's what a god does. Marries Michael Bluth.
Who wouldn't? Yeah, and then my other, my last one here is I wrote down 100 Bullets. I think it's a great premise. I think it could work well, again, as a serialized TV show. And you wouldn't need an outrageous budget because there'd be no superheroes or nothing like that. All right, dude, let's kind of wrap this up. What'd you think about your beer, your BIER communist drink you're drinking?
I finished it, and I wasn't even aware that I had finished it. Yeah, I've lost my buzz that I had from lunch.
Okay. What was it called again? The David Hasselhoff Frassen?
Schoferhofer Hefeweizen Grapefruit. It was fine, I guess. If you're looking for a drink, if you're thirsty, it's a solid 3. If you're looking for a beer, pick anything else. Let's go 3. That's 3. Yeah. It was drinkable. It didn't do anything for me. It was tasty enough. Yeah, it was inoffensive, and it was drinkable. So I guess that garners you a 3.
All right, a 3 for Scott. Like I said, I enjoyed the Lead Dog Brewing's Raspberry Blonde, from Lead Dog Brewing in Reno, Nevada. It was fine. Again, I tend to like these. I guess I like raspberry blondes because I've had 2 or 3 and I've enjoyed them, as long as they're not overly raspberry. This one was fine. It didn't knock my socks off. Didn't do anything special for me. But it was inoffensive, inoffensive if you're Canadian. So sure, it was fine. Don't worry about it. Have one if you want one. It was $3. It was not a big deal. So I'm going to give it a 3 also. It was just there, and it was just something that happened to me today. So yeah, there we go.
Well done, Lead Dog.
All right. Anything else, homeboy? I mean, people should be listening to our Mandalorian podcast, Mondays with Mando. But other than that, do we have anything else, or do you just want to say goodbye for this week?
Let's end it.
All right. Then you know what to do.
Goodbye, Scott.
Goodbye. TigShow.com